Has this ever happened to you? Your GM tells you that for your next game, you're rolling character stats, and they're being generous about it. Rather than making you roll each stat in order, they're letting you roll 6 numbers and then assign each of them to whichever stat feels best for the class that you want to play. On top of that, you get to roll 4 d6s and drop the lowest roll, giving you even better odds to land that sweet, sweet 18 right out of the gate. You can already feel that +4 modifier at level 1. And then it happens. The roll hits the gutter, and even by dropping the lowest number, one of your stats is a 5. I had someone help me with the math on this. The odds of rolling a sum total of 6 on 4 d6s is 0.007721%, or about 1 in 1,300. Now, if you're wondering why I said 6, it's because dropping the lowest roll, a 1 in this case, is how you end up with a 5. So while the math makes it seem totally plausible, it still feels like incredibly bad luck. Which is why I was pretty surprised when my GM said those 3 magic words that would solve everything. Make it work. Hi, I'm Gabriel Mercer, and this is Tablehaven. Make it work. Not just roll again, or didn't see it, or even, dude, that sucks. Zero mercy. Play the hand you're dealt. So now I had a big problem. I knew the best way to contain the damage was to choose a dump stat and build around it. If I could make something close to viable, no one would even question if the rolls went bad and I had to go back to the drawing board. These things happen, clearly. What's the most troublesome and also disposable class available? How about a bard? That meant face skills would be critical. If I was going to have any hope of hiding this straw man that was made for the woodchipper, I couldn't just dump strength, dexterity, or constitution and jump in front of a runaway owlbear. I needed to justify my inevitable death in character. So I gave my musician a soldier background, knowing that would put me on the front lines as a combat healer. I don't know, maybe I was a morale officer in some mercenary company. I dropped that rancid 5 into intelligence and chose the Loxodon ancestry, which would basically make me the perfect meat shield. Problem solved. Or so I thought. At this point, I was already making contingency plans. We were starting at level 1, so there would be plenty of opportunities for me to get in over my head. And then my GM asked me how the heck a character that dumb had learned to play music in the first place. I was ready. I'd come up with a suitably clever answer that put a tidy little bow on the trap I had laid. Look, I'm a half-decent role player, but I'm not a trained actor that can maintain a perfect separation between what my character knows and what I know as a player. Plus, playing dumb really isn't my style. So I said those 3 carefully planned words that I would immediately come to regret. Elephants never forget. Genius. All I got back was, huh. And then I watched as the light went on. A flicker of inspiration behind their eyes that meant I was in deep, deep trouble. Then my GM said, oh good, so here's what we're going to do. Every time you add a new spell to your list, you have to recite the description to me from memory before you can use it. Yes, you heard that right. I had to memorize and recite the effect of every new spell before I could cast it. Have you ever looked at the description of Charmed Person or Unseen Servant? Yeah. Oops. So what did I do? Well, I panicked and doubled down. You know, with a memory that good, it's reasonable to assume that they never bothered to learn to read in the first place. GM's response? Yeah, that tracks. Okay, so now I could reasonably justify eating or drinking anything with a poison label on it. What else could I squeeze out of this? I think it might make sense that as a healer, they probably wouldn't use any offensive magic. GM's response? Reasonable, I'd say. Okay, this was getting too easy. My character was basically a log with ears, and I wasn't done yet. You know, with that little intelligence, concentration would be pretty close to impossible. I should probably just strike all those spells off my list. By this point, the GM was basically over it. Sure, go right ahead. With death all but assured, we started the campaign and something strange happened. I had purposely assembled the pieces of this character build in the least optimal way possible. By all accounts, my bard should have been nearly unplayable, except he wasn't. We didn't have a rogue, so my bard would just walk through traps. When we stumbled into a witch's den, my Loxodon drank every brew he could get his hands on. There is even a magical item that we suspect is cursed, but offers us a glimpse into the future. And you better believe that I have him dive face first into that orb every night. It's like an addiction. The only problem was that I had inadvertently set myself up for success. With a memory like a steel trap, my GM was far more liberal with lore drops, which meant that cursed item was actually an easy win. Not being able to read meant that my character had to speak to people to gather information, which the charisma and face skills were perfectly suited for. By dumping concentration spells, I didn't mind getting hit during combat. Decent constitution and some lucky hit point rolls meant that I could simply walk up to party members and heal them, and it didn't matter what the circumstances were. Everything I thought was a weakness turned out to be a strength under the right conditions. And this turned out to be infectious because the other party members started taking a hard look at their dump stats to find new opportunities. One person's trash score became their role-playing treasure. And as I think back on that initial roll now, I realize how badly I misjudged what a low roll meant over the course of the game. Some of the most interesting characters in modern media have at least one glaring fundamental flaw that only makes their story better. Look at Willow Ufgood from Willow, Aja Adonis Shuri from Black Panther, and Eleven from Stranger Things. All great examples of characters that rely on everything except physical strength to overcome their challenges. What about the low dexterity characters like Schmendrick the Magician from The Last Unicorn, Fezzik the Giant from Princess Bride, and Donkey Kong from Nintendo? Then there are those constitution dump stats like Fontaine from Les Mis, Mr. Glass from Unbreakable, and Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. The easiest to identify are usually the intelligence dump stats. Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, and Mowgli from The Jungle Book. Wisdom dumps are some of my favorites because they are often amazingly intelligent. They just lack the common sense and practicality that happens when you live in a world populated by people and not just books. Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, Finn or FN2187 from the latest Star Wars trilogy, and Violet Evergarden from the Netflix original anime. And finally, you've got the highly competent and standoffish charisma dumps. The classic is Sherlock Holmes, but there are also characters like Mulan and Jessica Jones that are simply misunderstood by the society of their time. Now, I want to roll stats every time to see if the dice will present me with a challenge to work through before the game even starts. Not only was it fun trying to figure out how to RP around the garbage stats I had rolled, I was using abilities I had always ignored because I didn't have a choice. The game felt completely different, and the constraints pushed me to be way more creative. As for my Loxodon Bard, he's probably level 4 by the time you're hearing this, still chugging unidentified potions, taking point on the battlefield, and sleeping with his trunk wrapped around a cursed item. He may not be an optimal build, but he's also the furthest thing from what I expected, and he refuses to go down without a fight. If you have any questions about what to do with a dump stat, leave a comment down below. And if you'd like to tell us your story about how you recovered from a tragic roll, hit the link for the Tablehaven Discord.